August is by far one of my favorite months, and not just because it's my birthday month, but also because it kicks off officially the fall DIY season here at Whiskey and Whit. Today I have jam-packed this video with so much fall inspiration, everything from DIYs and crafts all the way through to home decor hacks. We're gonna set you up, you're gonna be ready for fall, and we're gonna kick off this season with a bang. You're watching Whiskey and Whit. My name is Whitney, and a huge welcome back to my whiskey craft buddies who are here each and every week to DIY with me. I am so thankful for you guys, and I am so ready to get into the fall spirit. If you love fall too, if you love seasonal DIYs and you're not already a craft buddy, be sure to hit subscribe down below, and also be sure you're on my email list. That is how you get access to all my free files. I'm going to be mentioning a lot of those today, everything from printables to cut files, everything in between, and also that's how you get notified when a new video comes out, because YouTube sometimes is wonky and doesn't let you guys know when I post new videos. So a great way to get around that is to get on my email list. You can scan this QR code or head down to the description. Up first, you are going to want some of this double-sided tape or Dollar Tree's balloon glue in your decorating stash for this year. Let me show you why. I had this vision for this cornucopia that I bought at the at-home store, and unfortunately my vision was to have them cascade and they won't sit on their own, these Dollar Tree pumpkins. So I added some of this double stick tape to the bottom, the side, wherever it was going to connect with another pumpkin. The great thing is it's not going to ruin those pumpkins, but it's going to stick them together so you can get that airy, floaty feeling, which aligned right with my vision. This would also be great for things like bats and leaves, and they're not going to ruin these types of items. I just wouldn't stick them to paper, but overall they are great for plasticky pumpkins like this. I have fallen in love with these oversized seasonal prints, but oh my gosh, 150 bucks, so crazy. So what I did is I decided to get some art from Etsy and print out 20 by 30 inch posters. So I got 2 of them. Then to make them really look like someone painted them instead of just getting them printed at Walgreens or Kinko's or whatever, I added some matte Mod Podge. I saw this trick a couple months ago on TikTok, and I've been kind of saving it in my back pocket until I had a project for it, and this is it. You're going to start with your first coat, cover the entire thing. Let it dry, and then you're going to go back in no matter what your design is. I'm doing pumpkins, I'm doing ghosts. You could do this honestly for anything. You're going to go over the top and really accentuate the curves and the details of what your painting is about. So I'm going over the trees with stippling. I'm going over the curves of the pumpkins, and you want to make sure you are a little more heavy-handed the second time around. It's going to dry clear, start white, and it's going to give a beautiful, beautiful texture. Now, while that is drying, I went out to the garage and grabbed some scrap 1x2 by 8. These are about $3 a piece. You can get them cheaper if you buy the furring strips, but I like the 1x2s because they have square corners. I'm going to measure 30 inches and cut a 45-degree angle. I'm doing all of this on my miter box to show you that you don't need big tools for this project. Once you've got a 45-degree angle cut at 30 inches, you're going to go to the other end and cut the other angle. Now the key here is you want to make sure that from long point to long point is 30 inches, and you're going to want 2 of those pieces. Then you're going to have a 45-degree end. You're going to go to the other end and measure 20 inches. So in total, you're going to have 2 30-inch and 2 20-inch per picture, and you are going to only be left with a little bit of waste from that 1x8, which I love. Then when you line them up on Dollar Tree poster board, which is what we're going to mount them on, the 20 by 30 fits perfect. You have a beautiful square corner frame. Then all you have to do to customize is sand down those rough edges and then stain or paint whatever vibe you want. I end up doing English chestnut on these. It's not one of my top used stains, but I do like the reddish orangey color, especially to go with the prints that I chose. Now, once your images are dry, you're going to use some double-sided tape and attach them to the foam board. You don't need a ton of tape. This is just to hold them in place while you're going to hook your frame on. I'm going to flip it over once I have everything kind of where I want it, line up one of my long sides, and staple it down. Then I'm going to add both of my sides as well as my top, make sure everything is lined up in the corners, and then I'm going to just do a quick little staple on all the different sides just so everything stays put. I can make sure it's where I want it, and then I'm going to continue on the outside. Now on each corner, I am going to do one of these corner fastener staples, so across, and that is going to grab both sides and keep your frame together. Now at this point, if you are going to lean it up, you are done. If you want to hang it on the wall, you can quickly add a little hanger to the back. I've done that on some of mine, and it's light enough that it is great to hang on the wall. I have to pat myself on the back because when my mom first saw these when I was getting the stage shots, she asked me if I painted it, and like, I am not a painter. I do not have that skill. But with the texture and everything, I was like, okay, I'm patting myself on the back. I think this is a pretty good dupe. As a reminder, theirs was $148 for the same size. I made a dupe for $25, 83% off. When I saw that Pottery Barn had lit wreaths for fall, I was so excited. I knew I had to make one because all my lit ones are for Christmas and it starts getting dark around Halloween time, so I would love to have this out. Starting with a $6 grapevine wreath from Hobby Lobby, and then here's where you can really get creative. Think about the colors in your house, what florals would go with that. I really liked the white, but I wanted a little bit more tan and orange in there, so I also grabbed that. The first thing I needed to do was light up that wreath, so I have these at my house from Christmas from Walmart. You can usually find lights like this really inexpensively from now until Christmas. And oh, just a little knot there. I had to unravel that, but once I did, I was able to wrap it all the way around, and I used the lights to wrap the battery pack in the back so it would stay with my wreath. Now we're just going to layer up our faux florals, and that is what's going to give us the really luxurious high-end look without having to spend a ton. And I'm going to just push the bottom of the pick into this grapevine wreath. I'm not going to use any adhesive here. I don't need any twine. We're just going to shove it into the grapevine wreath and it's going to stay. And then that way you can take the items off if you want to repurpose the wreath. You can do other things with the florals. Then, you know, it won't have glue residue. This is what I like to do. I'm doing a few different types of leaves before we get into the pumpkin picks. And then I'm going to do the orange and the white kind of alternating. I like that these also have some texture with the berries around the outside. And again, you're just shoving those in, adding a little bit more filler. Leaves and berries like this are great to fill any open space. And once you're done tinkering with it, it is all good to go. Now, I love how this looks during the day, but it's also so pretty at night. I like that it glows up our porch area, and this would also be a nice one to put in your house, like on a blanket ladder, maybe near where you're watching TV at night, because it will glow up that area kind of like Christmas lights. I don't know about you, but that vibe just makes me so happy. So that is definitely something that is a win for me. If you're a kitchen towel lover like me, but they're always falling down, here's a trick for you. Grab some of this pop dot tape from the Crafter Square section, and I like to cut just a small piece, and you can use it in between the front and the back piece of your towel when it is hanging on a towel rack, your stove, your dishwasher, kitchen area, whatever you have. It's not going to move. It comes off if you pull it, so you can still wash it, and you can also dry your hands, but they're not going to fall on you. This next project is such a big bang for your buck, and literally anyone could do it. Probably even your kiddos or grandkids could do this, which would be a fun thing to do together. I strung up some wood beads on some jute twine on my mantle, and then I took these Dollar Tree burlap leaves and just used the little hook on the back. It almost looks like a U shape, and I put that over the jute twine. So essentially you are just going to get creative. You could do whatever pattern that you want, and if the back falls off, I just strung it through the burlap to make sure that it wasn't going to fall off, because, you know, Dollar Tree adhesive sometimes is not the best. But then you have this beautiful falling leaves garland, and you can literally put this anywhere with a couple packs of leaves. The texture is awesome. Now, the other thing I like to do when it comes to garlands is layer them for more texture. So here is something you can put on top of that. I have a Happy Fall gingham banner that you can print out on my website, which is whiskeyandwhit.com. If you go up into the right-hand corner, click on Free File Library, then you are able to get access. All my email subscribers will have the password. So if you're looking for the password, check your most recent email from me. If not, you can use this QR code or the link in the description to sign up, and then you can have access to all my hundreds of files, including the spooky season option if you're more of a Halloween person. I'll have more Halloween projects to go first, but we're not rushing fall because fall just started. One of the biggest bummers is getting your mantle all decorated pretty and then realizing that the black turned off TV up above is just killing the vibe. Let me show you how to fix that quickly and easily with the YouTube app. All you have to do is go to search. I searched for fall art frame TV, but there's a ton of different options. I like this one, which I will link down below. I'm sure other people like it too because it's got 3.3 million views. But all you have to do is turn it on, and then I usually go to my TV settings. I put it on cinema because if you look at the sports to cinema, it looks a lot more like a painting, a little more matte, and then your fall vibes are just so much better. I love this next one because these are so fun to make and they are very beginner friendly. You're either going to want to use fence pickets at a 1x4 and a 1x6 piece, or you can also use a 1x4 and 1x6 lumber. The fence pickets are just cheaper and the cedar ones will last outside for you. The first thing I'm going to do is cut two 12-inch pieces from the 1x6 piece, and then I'm going to take the smaller 1x4 and cut another 12-inch piece. Now on those bigger pieces, we're just going to take a 45-degree miter from the corner. Now if you don't have a miter saw like this, you could easily use a miter box or just round it with a power sander, so don't worry about these corners if you don't have a saw that adjusts. Then on that smaller 1x4 12-inch piece, I took 30-degree corners off of all four corners just to help me round it, but again, you can use a power sander to help you curve those edges. So here with the power sander, I'm going to get everything really sanded down on my cedar fence pickets because they're unfinished. And then what I mean by using your sander is you can rock your hand around the outside, and even if those are square points, you could easily just kind of get it down to where it's more curved without having to do the initial cut. I also cut some scrap 1x2 furring strips that I just had laying around at a 45-degree angle to look like the stem, but you could do anything from a stick from your yard to any other embellishments you already have to make the pumpkin stem. Assembly is so quick and easy. You're just going to take some wood glue and nails to hook it together, and if you don't have a nail gun, you can easily just use a hammer and nails with the wood glue and they will stay together. Now I decided to do 3 different colors. One I stained, one I painted in like a pumpkin color, and then the other one I did this beautiful green, and I really like this color. I saw my friend Jennifer at Little Bit of Calm and Crazy use it last year, and I had to go buy it because it was so pretty. So I'm going to add those stems that I stained in a dark stain to the back. You can paint those, do whatever fits your motif, and those guys are done minus some embellishments. Now on this stained one, I decided to create a faux leopard print, and let me tell you, it is so much easier than you may think. I looked at a couple videos of people painting it, and the first step is to take a lighter brown color, and you're going to make just a variety of rounded shapes, different sizes, different shapes, and you're going to do that around the whole thing. Then I'm going to take a smaller detailed brush and add some black around the different sides to really get that leopard look. It doesn't have to be perfect. I was worried I was going to botch this whole thing, if I'm being totally honest, and it turned out so cute. Continue adding the black to either one side, two sides, looping around. Just look at some pictures of leopard print and that helps too. And then I'm going to do the same thing once it's dry with the wood glue and the nails to hook it together. I wanted my leopard to pop out of the back, that's why I painted them separately, but you could also paint it after you hook it together. These would be so fun to let your kids decorate as well, and all I did to finish them was add a little bit of raffia, and then you can use a sealant if you want to put them outside. I cannot wait to break these out again this year. With all the get-togethers that happen in the fall, everything from the start of the season through Thanksgiving, there is always a need for some sort of decor or a table centerpiece, and this one is going to be a showstopper, and it's not a ton of money to make. I grabbed this small craft pumpkin from Joann's last year, RIP. You can find these pretty much anywhere, and they are great to DIY with. So we're going to cut off the top. We are going to use the antique wax to make the ridges look more realistic, and we're going to paint the inside ridge orange so the white doesn't stick out. Then you have a beautiful vessel to create a floral arrangement. This is not only great to decorate your own house, but this would also be a wonderful hostess gift just to take to someone, or this would be a great thing to take for Thanksgiving. So many different options. I grabbed a variety of both florals from my house as well as a couple new things from Joann, and I like to grab seasonal florals when they go on clearance at the end of the year because most of the colors are going to stay the same, and it just really makes everything so much cheaper because florals can get out of hand. I'm just using my miter shears from Amazon to chop up these pieces so I'm not sticking the whole branch in there. And I'm using a mixture of colors, like I've got this Dollar Tree eucalyptus stem. The darker ones are from Joann, and I'm just adding them into the center to kind of start with darker leaves and kind of build my way up from there. Now we need a quick change of camera angle so you can see the rest of this. I found these in my basement actually. I think I was going to return them and then I didn't end up doing that. So it was always nice to find more supplies in the basement. I'm adding some of these berries, some more leaves, and this pumpkin pick to finish off the look. You could customize this any way you want. You could do a white pumpkin base. You could do different colors within the display. I made a bunch of these for centerpieces at a friend's baby shower when she had a kind of fall themed baby shower. So tons of different options. They were selling an arrangement like this at Kirkland's for 40 bucks. That's the most comparable. Mine was about 20, so 50% off. Last fall, my friend Wendy at White Sparrow Living sent me this challenge item in a mystery box, and I was challenged to figure out how to create fall decor with it. I think you're going to like how it turned out. And we're going to start by just disassembling it. So I'm going to get rid of the loofahs, I'm going to get rid of any of those extra strings, and then I'm just going to use my scissors to cut some triangle shapes out of the rainbow. The first couple ones I did looked like a kindergartner did it, and honestly that's a little offensive to a kindergartner. Mine were way worse, so I ended up going back through and fixing them, but once I did, I had some pretty decent shapes. I don't know, the curve and the triangle, it was just throwing me off. I was able to make 5 of those, and then I also disassembled the loofah to get some of that netting that we're going to use later. I took some chalk paint, which is the color pumpkin in Waverly chalk paint, and I am painting the top as well as the 2 sides of the triangle. Don't worry about the back or the bottom because we're just going to cover it with felt. You're going to want to make sure you give them ample time to dry if you are deciding to chop up a loofah like I did, because the paint takes a little bit to dry on the sponge. I'm adding some hot glue, and then I am gluing the back of my triangle as well as the bottom onto this felt. This is just Cricut brand felt. It was the only one that I had in my stash that was like close enough to what I was going for. And once you glue it on, I find it's easier to just put it on some scrap and then trim it versus trying to cut the exact size and get it to glue on correctly. Then I went back into my stash for some Dollar Tree white nautical rope, and we're going to cut a piece the length of the top of our triangle. I needed to add a little bit of clear tape because if you've ever worked with this before, sometimes you go to cut it and literally the ends will unravel, and I wanted that nice spiral. So when I cut between the tape, then it left the finished end for the next piece, and then I also had a finished end for the piece that I was gluing on to my triangle. And at this point, you probably know where we're going, but stick with me because we're not done yet. I am going to take some of that loofah piece and actually make some little dollops of whipped cream out of it because we are going to try, to fully use this challenge item to the full extent because Wendy tried to stump me and I get really stubborn with these mystery boxes. I know she meant it all in good fun. I don't mean it like that. It's just funny because we all kind of get a little rivalry with each other. I rolled it up as best I could into a little dollop and glued it straight down, and then I took my little embroidery scissors and trimmed it a little bit so I didn't have all those extra little pieces coming out. Then once all my slices were done, I used some of the wood beads that we had left over from chopping up that wood bead pumpkin, and I did 3 beads and a slice of pie, 3 beads and a slice of pie all the way down. Then I thought it needed a little bit more, so I popped off 2 styrofoam pumpkins from the floral from Wendy, so we're using it a little different than a traditional floral. Added those with my dowel needle, which is a game changer for garlands. I've said it before, it's just so helpful. And while we're on the topic of pies, here's another variation. You can do a bunch of different flavors out of scrap wood and felt. So to make the pumpkin pie, I painted the top orange and then I hot glued it onto some tan felt for the crust. I made sure there was space up at the top so that I could do this little scallop cutting pattern, glue it on, and then cut some more to create the kind of fun crust. I cut a strip and then I made a few more about the same size. I folded it into an accordion and used some hot glue to hold the bottom together so my accordion wouldn't unravel. Then I glued it to the top. Then to finish it off, I created a little dab of whipped cream, and I did that by cutting 6 circles. They don't have to be perfect, and I glued them end to end like this, or side to side, I guess. And then I rolled it around like a felt flower, glued the end, and trimmed the bottom so it would sit flat. Add some hot glue, put it on the center, fan it out, and you've got some pumpkin pie. Up next is the pecan pie. I took another slice and stained it with the Antique Wax by Waverly to kind of give it a nice base. Glued on the crust just like I did for the pumpkin pie. And this time I also had it stretch kind of up and around the top so that you could kind of see that crust on the top. Once I got done trimming everything, it was time to make the pecans. So to do that, I cut some dark and light strips of felt, and I started by folding it towards me, away from me, towards me again, and then continue to wrap it all the way around the outside. It might feel kind of weird. I had to do a couple to practice, but once you glue it and hold it shut, it kind of really gives you that pecan look like you would see on the top of pecan pie. Also, let me know in the comments, do you say pecan or pecan? I'm always interested on what people call certain things. I made a bunch of them and then I just glued them on in a pattern that I liked, and I really like this. Alex's grandpa loves pecan pie. It's a tradition to make it on Thanksgiving, so I thought this would be a nice tie into our decor. I also made blueberry and strawberry pie. I did that by cutting red and blue felt to the size of my wood piece, adding crust like I did on all of the other pieces. And then I needed to cut a piece for the top so that I could do kind of the crust overlay. Once it was cut to size, I folded it in half and cut out some circular shapes. This is not as fancy as if you were to cut it out with a Cricut, but honestly, I think this looks cute and handmade, so I'm totally cool with it. Once you have your little peekaboo areas, you can glue that on the top, trim it down, and then I just added a strip of red and blue respectively around the outside so it looked like the filling if you were to cut the pie open. And finally, the apple pie. So red on the top, red around the outside, crust on the bottom like we've done before, and then we're cutting strips to create this little woven pattern that you usually see on top of apple pies. Once I had all my pieces cut and I weaved them over under, I glued the piece down to the top, glued everything to each other, trimmed the edges, and then I braided 3 strips together to give you that braided top of the apple pie. Glued it down, made sure my ends weren't going to unravel, so I secured them with hot glue, and then I just trimmed them down. These have to be one of my favorite projects I've ever done for fall. I think they're so fun and cute. I also like that they're a little bit more substantial than just say like a felt piece. I saw a garland that looked like this at Michael's and I thought it would be a really cute garland to recreate, but I'm so glad I went this route with the wood. The felt kind of softens it up, gives it the whimsy, but these are so fun and they are going to be up all fall long, all the way into Thanksgiving. If you've been around here before, you know that I love to do pie and decor. I was inspired by these terracotta pumpkins from Pottery Barn, and I wanted to make them for less. I found these paper mache pumpkins at such a great price at Joann last year. RIP, I miss them so much, especially for dupes. And I also grabbed one of these from Dollar Tree. The great news is you can find these paper mache pumpkins just about anywhere. Joann was just the best price last year. I'll link some comparable ones down below. I started by removing any additional embellishments that it had, and then I started mixing up some brown, some tan, and some white paint to get the color of the stone that I was looking for. Once I have the color that I want, I'm going to put some baking soda in there. I'm going to add a little bit at a time until I get like a really chalky, thick consistency, and then I'm going to apply that to my pumpkin. Now here comes a little wacky but fun part. You're going to add some coffee. Now this is ground coffee, but this is coffee that has not went through the coffee machine. So you don't want coffee grounds, because if you put coffee grounds on there, you might think, oh, I'm using this instead of saving it from the trash, but it could mold because there's moisture in it. Here, these are already dry, so we're kind of using it in place of some other types of texture. If you don't have coffee, you could also use some salt. The reason I used coffee was because I liked that you could kind of see the dark color underneath, but you know, use what you have. You could also use sugar. Just put something on there because then you could seal it afterwards. Once I have my coffee grounds in there and they're where I want, I'm going to add a little bit of antique wax into the creases and then buff it out with a mixture of a paper towel and my brush. That way you're going to have it look like it's got that stone depth, and I just kind of mess with it until I get the look I'm going for. Then that's it. And look at how great these look. Not only do these look so much like the inspiration, but the plus is, as a mom of 2 little boys, it's really nice to know that if this falls off the table, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's a paper mache pumpkin, but it looks like stone. That is a win. It's also great if you like to put stuff on your shelves, but you don't want to have to lift it up too high or over your head. Big savings. Also way more practical in my opinion. I love the stoop. One of my most loved and most downloaded files is this Man in the Moon, but I wanted to show you how you could take this under $9 round, 15 inches from Lowe's, and make one that is Cricut free. You do not need a Cricut for it. So the first thing you're going to do is stain your round so you have a dark base. Then I'm taking a chippy brush and some white chalk paint, and I'm getting off the excess, and then I'm going to put the white over the top. The goal here is to have that dark stain, which is early American, shine through just enough that it gives you some texture. Then I created this template for you. You can print it out. It's 4 sheets of paper, and then you're going to cut it and put it together like a poster. It's going to line up in the center, and then you can trim around the outside to create a transfer or a stencil. Now, if you have graphite paper like I do, this is really helpful. If you don't, no worries. Just take a pencil and color on the back where you're going to transfer. It's going to do the exact same thing, but instead of having the paper in between, the lead from you coloring on the back is going to transfer. You're going to take some sort of utensil, whether that be a pen or a pencil. I like using a pen because I can see where I've worked, and you're going to trace all of those little pieces. This took me maybe 10 minutes, so it may feel tedious, but it's pretty quick. And then when you're done and you take off the graphite paper, you're going to have this little paint by number situation, even though you're just going to use black. I'm using my favorite paint markers from Amazon to trace the outside of this, and then that's it. That's all you have to do. I ended up sealing it real quick with just some clear matte spray paint. You can also use a spray polyacrylic or a wipe-on polyacrylic, whatever you have. But I like that it is sealed, so when I pack it away, it's not going to get scratched, especially the black paint. These sell for so much money, and I love this 15-inch round size. If you are a person with a Cricut and would like to make it or make a smaller one, I also have a Dollar Tree tutorial where you can use a Dollar Tree round to make your own, and then both the template and the SVG file are available over in my free file library. So if you're interested in this tutorial on how to make the one with the Cricut, I will link that down below. Last year I made over this Dollar Tree Plus find. This was a $5 easel sign, but you could do this on any blank that you have. It was the cut file that was really popular. So I grabbed 2 of these and I did one with kind of a like tan background, and then the other one I painted with a black background, so then that way it looked like a chalkboard. I had 2 different variations, one for fall that was Take Me Down to the Pumpkin City, and the second one was a custom Addams Family sign. Here are the approximate cut measurements for these signs if you're using these specific Dollar Tree ones. If not, measure your blank and cut it out, and here is how you can change the colors of the SVG. If you're wanting to change any of the colors on my SVGs, here's how to do it quickly and easily. So we're going to use this Pumpkin City one, and what you're going to want to do is head over here, and as you can see, there's a bunch of different elements. So we're going to ungroup this until you can get all of your different pieces individually. So then all I'm going to do is you can either select it over here or over here, and I'm holding down Command on my Mac. Here are all my pieces, and all I have to do is go up here and change it to orange. That is it. Now what you're going to want to do is, if you want these to cut in place, you're going to want to select them and hit attach. If you don't mind that they cut individually because we're going to hand place them, that's fine too. The other thing I'm going to go through and do is select this text here. So we've got these two. We're going to attach these two so they cut together. And we also want our orange. So here's this. So I'm going to attach that. And then I'm also going to attach these three. So all I'm doing is basically telling the machine to cut them separately. So then that way I can have a nice big sign with the different pieces. So then once you cut everything, you're going to have all your little elements on orange or whatever color that you want. And then we are going to have our two sections of the wording. I also did the same thing for the setup for the Addams family. And as you will notice here in a few minutes, you can add your own family name. So the font I used was Likewise. You literally just type out your family name after you install the font or whatever font you like, and you can attach that. So there'll be a hole at the bottom where you can put your own family name. Now I'm going to apply this with transfer tape, paper to be exact, and we're also going to use the hinge method. So I'm going to get everything where I want it, and I'm also going to start trimming some of these outer pieces of transfer tape so I can better understand where those orange elements need to go. Another thing that's helpful with this is pull up your SVG file so you can actually see it, so you're not going in blind. Then that way you know holistically like where everything needs to sit. Then once my letters are where they need to go, I'm going to put that paper transfer tape down. So pick up the one side, chop a little bit off, push it down from the center outward, and then you can do the other side and it's not going to move on you. It's going to really reduce your frustration, I promise. Repeat the same with that bottom piece, and then we're just going to go in by hand and add our little orange elements with some more paper transfer tape. I had a lot of you guys ask for some porch ideas. This would be super cute on a small porch. It would also be great on a table. It would be cute outside. So many different options for this one. If you're using it outside, I would recommend sealing over the top with a polyacrylic. Then that way your vinyl's not going to peel up on you. But I love how this turned out, and how fun is the Guns N' Roses reference. I saw something similar, but I didn't like the wording, so I decided to make my own, which is usually the case for a lot of projects. For the Addams family one, it's the same thing. I'm using my hinge method. I'm putting this on the sandstone color so the black text pops. And then, like I said, you can add your own name to this one. Totally customizable. If you're going to a Halloween party too, this is a pretty quick and easy thing to whip up. That would be a really cute hostess gift. And you could put this on literally anything. It doesn't have to be on this Dollar Tree sign. That's the beauty of my free files. You can do what you want on what you want. Mix and match, all the fun stuff. Here's a Dollar Tree hack to take a large sign like this and take it up another notch. Grab yourself a pool noodle. It could be from anywhere. It doesn't have to be a Dollar Tree pool noodle. Some places have them cheaper, so shop smart. And if you see this pool noodle tool at Dollar Tree, grab yourself one because it is so helpful. I keep it in my craft room. If you can't find it though, you can definitely use a regular serrated knife. I cut down a piece to fit the top of my sign as well as down the center of one side so it would fit over. And this is going to act as pseudo floral foam. This is awesome because I can take this on and off, and I was able to add a bunch of fun fall florals to make this look nice and full. The other great thing is if you've got orange or you've got white or a color that blends in, I didn't have to fill the whole thing because I didn't want to go down too far because then you can't read the sign. So this worked out perfect and I absolutely love it. And it wouldn't be fall without a little pumpkin spice, especially in a coffee drink. So let me show you how I made this really adorable pumpkin spice season sign. This is one of my fence picket DIYs. I've got a ton of these on my channel. I'm using cedar fence pickets for this one, but you could use any type. I'm cutting 2 pieces at 20 inches. These are the 1x6 pickets. And then I'm using a pencil to rough out the shape that I wanted. I'm going to cut one side with my jigsaw, and then I'm going to flip it over, use it as a mirror, and cut it on the other side. Now, if you don't have a jigsaw, but you really like this shape, you could do a similar process with Dollar Tree foam board. Just cut it out with an X-Acto knife, and that will also do the trick. So you can have a much lighter sign, you can paint that. So just an option if you don't have a jigsaw or you just want a lighter sign. Sometimes with a jigsaw you have to go through a couple times and make it smaller. Like once I started looking at it, I'm like, okay, the cup looks a little too oblong. So I cut it down, and then once it was where I wanted it, I sanded it down, and then I filled the center with plastic wood. Now, over the years, I've learned the biggest thing here is you want to make sure that your wood is completely dry. If not, even though you fill it with the wood filler and let it dry, it's going to separate anyway. So I made sure that this was fully dry in my house before I did this process. Then you're going to sand down that wood filler, and we're going to use a pencil to rough out where our design is going to go. Now I knew I wanted a coffee cup sleeve on there so that I could add some text, And I also wanted the whipped cream at the top. That's hence why I cut that out that way. So I took my paint and just started going over the lines, and I did brown in the center to look like the coffee sleeve. Then to add some details, I wanted to add some cute little polka dots, so I mixed the orange that I used before with a little bit of white and just used my brush in a twirly motion to create these polka dots. Then with a white paint marker, I'm just adding some reflections in different angles on all of the circles, and then I'm adding just some black dots with it. We're going to outline the whole thing in these lines, and as you're seeing, I'm not connecting the lines. I think that adds to the whimsy element, and that is going to really make this pop. I put a couple lines on there to make it look like the whipped cream was kind of swirled on top. And then I used the end of my paintbrush to create these dots. And the last step was to grab this free file, cut it out, and center it on my sign. I'm using paper transfer tape so I don't rip up all of the hard work I just did with all of the painting. Another Whit tip I have for painting things like this is head over to Pinterest or Etsy. If I have something to look at, I can kind of take bits and pieces of things that I like, which is what I did here, and it makes it a lot easier to paint. So I promise you it's not as scary as it looks. And how fun did this turn out? This is my dog Sebastian, and he absolutely hates wearing anything, minus these bandanas I make out of fabric for every season. Let me show you how easy it is. You're going to start with this free template that you can find over in the free resource library over on my blog, and you're going to trim it out and then lay out your fabric. I created this template in Canva, and I unrolled all of my fabric and decided to use it to cut basically a, doubled up size. Kind of like if you were back in grade school and you were cutting a heart, you want your crease to be down the center. And once we cut this, we're going to have a fun little pennant shape. Then I'm going to go through with just some heat. I'm using my mini press to get out any of the creases and then do any additional trimming that needs to be done. Now here's where the magic happens. We are going to hem both sides of these with just a little bit of heat so I kind of know where I'm going to glue. And I'm going to make this a no-sew project, but you could easily sew right where I'm putting the glue. I just don't have a sewing machine and I didn't want to do this by hand. Run a layer of hot glue across the top and fold that strap down. And then we are going to add some more hot glue and hem our edges just so they look a little bit more finished around the bottom of the triangle. Once that's all set, you are ready to go, minus any glue pops. And I'm just going to take Sebastian's collar. I'm going to slide it right through this opening. And I have a really fun and festive fall bandana for photos. If we go to any fall festivals and take him this year, he's not a huge fan of having something tied around his neck, but he's used to wearing a collar. So I clipped it on. Don't worry, he was paid for his appearance in this video in treats. And he loves it. If this was tied on, he would try to bite it off, but hooking it right on the collar made it perfect. He looks so cute. The orange is so fun on his black fur, and he's gonna be rocking this all fall. So I have a running list of all of the project suggestions that are sent to me by craft buddies, and this reversible sign was requested so many times. So I'm going to grab a 1x6 cedar fence picket as well as a 1x4, and I'm going to start by cutting the fence picket 2 pieces to 22 inches long. Then I'm going to take that 1x4 and measure for a hat brim. I just eyeballed it, and then I made sure to cut 2 pieces the same length so we can have one side reversible to the other side. To assemble this, it was super easy. Just add a little bit of wood glue, and then I used nails. You can also use finish nails with a hammer if you don't have a nail gun. So something to keep in mind, you don't have to have a nail gun. And here is our reversible sign. Now, hindsight's 2020. I probably would have painted the stuff before I put it on in the future, but that's okay. I did the top of the snowman hat in black chalk paint, and then I used a chippy brush and white chalk paint for the snowman. I really wanted that beautiful cedar wood grain to show through. And then once I finished with that, I used the leftover paint on my chippy brush to add a little distressing to the hat, and that just really helped with the overall look. Then for the scarecrow side, I decided to leave the bottom just the natural cedar wood, and then the top I used a baby wipe to apply some antique wax to give it a faux stained effect. Then it was time to draw on the face. So you guys know me, I always love looking up inspiration on Pinterest on my phone so I can look at something and then kind of make it my own, but also have an idea of like the elements in a scarecrow face because I cannot just wing this. So inspiration images are my best friend. I added 2 eyes, eyebrows, a smile with some stitches at the bottom. And then I went into creating the nose with some orange paint. I painted it, and it didn't have to be perfect because I knew I was going to go back in with the black paint marker to outline it again. So I just got a rough triangle shape. And then I added some light pink paint and rubbed it in with my finger to create some cheeks. I didn't want them to be too red, so I just did a light ballerina pink. Here is that effect that I was talking about, adding the outline and the stitching to the outside of the orange nose. And then I added a little bit of white to the eyes and some accents to the cheeks. Then I flipped my sign over and had fun drawing, same thing, but doing a snowman face. And I also tied a bow for the hat brim and just made the knot big enough so I could slide in this pine. Then that way I can remove it when I'm using the scarecrow side, but the ribbon will just stay glued up there and I can kind of tuck it behind. And I put those together with a Dollar Tree sunflower and some Dollar Tree eucalyptus. I just did it very symmetrical on either side, wrapped the center with some jute twine so that would grip to the hot glue, and then I hot glued it right in the center of the scarecrow's hat. I hope for everybody that requested this project, and even some of you that didn't, that you love it and you want to recreate it. I think this turned out so cute. It's a pretty easy face to paint on either side, and we gotta love multi-use decor because you can leave this out from now all the way well past Christmas. You could also do like a green or a black scarf so it doesn't even scream Christmas. It's just more winter. We're going to grab some of these Dollar Tree canvases, and you can use any size that they have. Just make sure you're getting an option with wood on the inside. I went with the 2-pack for $5 in the plus section, but you can also use the $1.25 8x10. I'm using a box cutter to remove the canvas piece, and I used to pop out all of the staples by hand, and that was way quicker, so I'm going to be doing that in the future. After a quick sand and stain to the frame, I went inside and cut out both a Great Gatsby free file as well as a Sleepy Hollow file that I designed, which again, all these will be over in that free file library. And I'm cutting it out in black Caesar Easy Weed vinyl. To help save vinyl on both of those book pages, I kind of cut everything out in chunks. So the title of the book page, the text, and then if it has a page number at the bottom. You can cut them out all in one piece if it helps you space things, but I decided I didn't want to waste some of that dead space in vinyl. So totally up to you. It's all in how you attach it in Design Space. Then I'm going to do a quick dry fit with the border on the outside just to make sure that I have everything centered. You're going to have to move it around, especially dependent on the size of your press. You can also use an iron for heat transfer vinyl. I did that for years, so you don't need a Cricut press, but it is nice to have. You don't have to have it though. Then we're going to peel off those carrier sheets and trim off any extra canvas. You can usually see the curve and the crease on the outside, so that's what you're going to cut along. And then it's time to reattach to our frame. So what I'm going to do is add glue from my hot glue gun just to one side of the frame. I'm going to attach that, and then we're going to flip it over and finish the gluing. I find if you glue the entire thing, it takes a little bit longer, and also some of your glue will start cooling and solidifying before you're able to get it where you want it. I love how this Great Gatsby sign looks with my pumpkin DIY high-end art. And if you like that Cricut project, here's another one for you. I found these wood signs in Dollar Tree's Crafter Square section last year, but again, you can use any blank that you have. I stained it with dark walnut stain, and then I went over the top with a chippy brush and some orange paint, just so then that way I could see the stain, but also have the orange for the color. Then here's another free cut file I'm providing for you. It's called Let's Jump in the Leaves under the Fall and Halloween files. I'm cutting it to 10 inches wide on matte white vinyl and applying it with paper transfer tape. I stuck it right onto my sign, and I thought it would be so adorable to be on top of a wreath that looked like a pile of leaves. So I got some of these cheap garlands from Dollar Tree, and I put them around a smaller wreath form. I just wrapped them around until I got the look that I wanted, and then when it hangs one in front of the other, it looks like the sign is sitting on a pile of leaves. I love this. It looks so festive, and it's just a fun way, especially with two little boys in the house, that, you know, we want to do fun things like jumping in the leaves. One of my favorite things for fall into Christmas is to create large porch signs. These pumpkins are actually inspired by my snowman Christmas fence picket thing that I made for my porch. And a lot of you guys said, flip it over, it would be great with pumpkins on the back. Well, I already finished that one, so I decided to make an additional one. But if you want to check out that Christmas in July, you could make one side pumpkin, one side snowman. I laid 3 pieces out that were 48 inches long, and I roughed out what it would look like for 3 pumpkins approximately to sit on top of each other. Now, I am not super Picasso when it comes to my jigsaw, so I am going for rough shapes here. Once your first side is how you want it, then you're going to mirror it over to another piece, trace it, and cut that one out as well. Then I needed to create kind of a lip at the bottom as well as a curve at the top, so they had the top and bottom pumpkin curves. So I marked those and cut them out. And here is what we're working with. Not perfect, but you could definitely work your magic when you are using the orbital sander. Working with the jigsaw, I would highly recommend not sanding by hand because this really helps clean up any imperfections or issues that you have when you're cutting with that jigsaw. I'm rocking my hand around the edges, making sure everything is sanded down, and I'm also taking off any sharp edges just because I think it looks better on the sign. Then again, grabbing a bunch of scrap pieces. You don't need anything else, just use scrap from other projects to, you know, hook the back, or see if you can grab some value wood from your hardware store. And again, wood glue and nails. Now the fun part, time to decorate. So the top pumpkin, I'm actually going to paint a leopard print because, like I said, I love painting leopard print now. The bottom is going to be an orange chalk paint, and the middle is going to be that fun moss color. Once everything dried, I kind of went back through with the bottom of the sandstone pumpkin at the top, which is another Waverly color, and this moss one to kind of create some little like bumps and unevenness so it would look like a real pumpkin, or I guess a whimsy pumpkin. I did the polka dots similar to my pumpkin spice cup, but I made these larger. I just mixed a little bit of orange with white, and I did 2 different sizes. Then I painted the top just like I did that other pumpkin, so those wonky looking circles, and then followed up with some black detail work. Then for my center pumpkin, I decided to do a technique I learned from Tracy at Country Charm by Tracy, who I will link down below. And she has this fun like gingham print. So you just use a fan brush, and I did a mixture of gray and black, did some vertical stripes, and then did some horizontal stripes as well. And it's a fun way to get kind of an abstract gingham print. Once I had all my designs down, I went through with some paint markers. These are my favorites from Amazon, and I added some black and white details based on a sign, again, that I found on Pinterest. That is how I am able to do this. I look at pictures and I try to, you know, replicate it as close as I can, and that allows me to create these whimsy looks without just having to pull it out of thin air, because my brain does not work like that. I can think of the project, but as far as painting, not so much. I did the same thing with a 1x2 scrap that I did with my other pumpkins, and then I had a little bit of a gap, so I decided to add a welcome sign to make my pumpkins look like they were stacked a little bit more. So I cut a piece on my miter box, and then I cut out this word on my printer. And I wanted to show you how you could transfer any of my designs here. You just print it out to the size that you need, and then you want some tracing paper, or you can color the back of the paper with a pencil. Either way. I like the tracing paper because it saves my lead, but whichever works. Then you're going to line it up where you want it with the tracing paper underneath. Go ahead and trace those letters, and then you've got a fun outline. I went through and painted it with some black and white paint, added a little bit of whimsy texture, and nailed it right on the front. I tied a little bit of raffia to the top, and I love this sign so much. Pumpkins like these are a dime a dozen at stores. You can find them pretty much anywhere in my experience. This is what I saw recently at my Walmart. There's also some at Dollar Tree. You can also get them at Hobby Lobby. That's where I ended up getting my larger ones. The reason I did that is because these look like more realistic pumpkins, but they also are flatter, which is a lot easier to apply your vinyl. So step one is always measure. Any project, always measure, because I feel like that's what gives the most people the headaches, because you think, oh, it's about 5 inches, and it's definitely not 5 inches. So let's start by creating a custom name. So you're going to start in your design software. I'm in Design Space because I have a Cricut, and you're just going to add some text. So let's say that we're making this for a gift for a friend. We're going to do the Johnson family. And I'm actually going to make this 3 different elements, because if I have just the one, it makes it harder to design. So you can either do duplicate here by right clicking, or you can go up here and duplicate. Then you're going to pick a font that you like. The one that I've been really liking lately is one that I downloaded called Sunkissed. It's a nice like hand lettered font, so we're going to go with that. Then I'm just going to play around with the size and kind of fit the around, so we kind of have it stacked in. I like to take the tops and the bottoms and kind of fit them together like a puzzle piece. It just looks a little bit more intentional. Then we're going to select both of these and we're going to attach them so they cut together, and then we're going to size them to the pumpkin width that you measured. So whatever the width of your pumpkin is, for this example, let's just say we want it to be 8. So we're going to double click up here. It's going to make it 8 inches wide. Here we go. And the other thing you can do is you can also, detach and move it around. Once it's big, you might think, okay, I like this a little bit better, so we'll attach this, and voila. So then all you have to do is cut this out on the vinyl that you want to apply to your pumpkin, and then I'm going to show you some tricks to get it to not bubble. Now I'm going to cut on some smart material just because I had this in my craft room and I wanted to use it up, but you could easily put it on the mat and cut that way as well. It's whatever you have on hand. Now with Cricut, you have to have the Cricut smart material. You can't just cut anything matless, so keep that in mind if you're looking at the matless cutting option. If you want to use that feature, as of today, you have to buy the Cricut vinyl in order to use that feature. So if you buy a lot of like tech wrap or HTV rent, whatever, keep that in mind if you're looking to upgrade. So once that was done, I chopped it up and I got to weeding. I like to remove the little innards before I do the outside, but it's personal preference. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Just whatever is the least stressful for you. I know some people think it is super zen. Other people hate weeding. So it's just wherever you fall. Then I am going to add my clear transfer tape from Expressions Vinyl. And then I'm going to do this fun trick to get it onto my pumpkin. I'm going to find the flattest surface that I can, which is kind of funny because it's a pumpkin and it has a lot of grooves. But I'm going to start by pressing down the and the S. Then I'm going to start creating little slits in my transfer tape to allow for some give, so that way I'm not going to have a ton of bubbling in my last name. I worked from the S all the way to the other S, and then I worked my way back. And if you have any pieces that you need to pop up again, it is pretty forgiving, this vinyl, so you're able to do this before everything sets, and it makes it look like you wrote on it with a marker. Now, I don't know about you, but my handwriting is definitely not that good, and so using the Cricut to hack that look is definitely awesome. This would make a fabulous addition to your overall fall decor. You could also put it on your porch. I would definitely seal the front with Mod Podge if you want it to be outside in the elements, but it looks so cute with this little pumpkin patch sign, and this would be an amazing hostess gift to take to any fall function. I know so many of you were so excited when I shared that I was going to do a bigger and better Haunted Mansion setup this year, and so this sign is actually going to be a part of that. You're going to grab yourself a 1x12, and mine from Home Depot was under $8, making this so affordable. I'm going to start by staining the whole thing in Early American, and then once the stain has dried, both sides, all the edges, I'm going to take this thick painter's tape. You can do as thick as you want. I ended up doing, I don't know what this is, maybe 2-inch painter's tape around the outside. Make sure it's fully pushed down, and then you are going to paint inside of it. Once you peel off that painter's tape, it's going to look like a wood frame without any extra cost or bulk, which is great. If you want a thinner frame, just go with 1-inch painter's tape. Now for the decal to pull it all together. So this file is going to be way too large to cut on a mat for my side because I need it to be about 38 inches tall. So what I'm going to do is, because it's an SVG, it's all grouped together. So I'm going to go to group, and then I'm going to find which pieces that I want to cut together. So I can go up here, make sure the group is selected, and then unselect. Then let's say I want to cut this bottom section together. That'll work because it's 16.87 by 7.24, so that's going to fit on my 24 by 24 mat. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that. It's okay that it changed to white, no big deal. And then I'm going to select this up here, which is 19.9, same thing, and we're going to attach these. Then I'm going to click Make, and I'm going to be able to cut it in 2 separate pieces, and then we'll just apply the vinyl decal onto the sign. So that is a nice way of being able to cut a 2-part sign, and make sure that you attach those pieces, because if not, they're going to look all mumbled jumbled, but once you have them, you're able to cut. I cut this out on matte white and black vinyl, my favorites from Oracle. I will have my favorite supplies that I'm using today linked down below, and I'm going to weed it. Now we're going to weed this like a decal. You're probably thinking we're not stenciling. No, this time we are just going to do the decal. This is going to live inside my house, but if you want it to be outside, you could definitely stencil it, or you are going to just seal the outside with a polyacrylic, let it dry, do a couple coats, and that is going to protect your sign and your vinyl. I've had a vinyl sign outside for a long time, and as long as it's sealed properly, it is going to last. I also have a Hey There Pumpkin sign. Both of these are free cut files over on my blog for you. And before I stuck it on my sign, I wanted to create 2 messy bows, so I made one in Haunted Mansion colors and then one in some fall colors. All you need to do is cut strips probably, I don't know, 10 inches long. We're going to dovetail the ends, and then we're going to lay them in a pattern, tie it around the center. Because the ribbon has wires in it, you're going to be able to bend it the way that you want. Then we're going to go ahead and apply to our sign. So the key here is that you're going to want to put something down like my blanket here, just so then that way your paint on the other side isn't going to scratch before you have the chance to seal it. I am going to put all of my pieces with some transfer tape onto my sign, and I'm going to get it where it needs to go. Then I'm going to take some painter's tape and do the hinge method, which is such a game changer, especially when you're piecing things together like this. Get everything where you want it to go, put some painter's tape over the top, yes, that includes your transfer tape, and then you're going to peel back half of your decal. Go ahead and apply that, and then you're going to do that to the other side, but that tape is going to keep it in place, so no more trying to guess if you are putting your stuff in the right spot. You know, because you lined it up meticulously, and then you use the tape to hold it. Once that's done, we're going to flip it over, do the back side, which is my Haunted Mansion sign, which I'm so excited about. And then I just added my cute bows with a stapler. I do that because then that way, if it gets warm or anything, if it's outside, you are not going to have melty hot glue. So I would go with a stapler or nails or something instead of the hot glue. I cannot wait to use this, but since it's not quite Halloween time yet, I'm going to do the Hey There Pumpkin first, and then I'll be able to reverse it. Now for the sealing, you're going to want to seal it before you add the bow on, just because that is going to keep everything nice and sealed. You don't want to have to try to do that around the bow. What a jam-packed video full of so much fall inspiration. I'm so glad you stuck with me through this whole video. Be sure to head down to the comments and let me know which one of these projects either you already have made or you are going to be making this season. Be sure you're on the email list for all those free files, and be sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!